open. So I'm going to draw an open circle. If I plug in -2, what do I get? What about -3? Can we see a pattern? Can I just keep on? And then I'm going to connect my points. Yes. I have to show, because this point can go all the way up to -1. So it can be -1.999999. So I have to indicate that it goes all the way up to -1, but it doesn't actually touch. That's what this circle indicates. If that point is open, which is not colored in, that means it goes all the way up to it, but it doesn't actually touch it. Now, when we graph the next equation, if it's equal to, or greater than or equal to, that's when we put in the filled in circle, the filled in point. So at -1 for the second equation, what do I get? So I'm going to put in a closed circle. How we got 4?
Yeah, I used on the second equation.
Second equation is this one. So I'm going to plug in -1 in for x. So I'm going to have a negative, -1, plus 3. Negative times negative is a positive. Positive 1 plus 3 is 4. Now, instead of just plugging in numbers like we have in the past, or what we did in the first part, I can actually use slope to finish graphing this. What's my slope of this equation? -1. So that means I'm going to go down, left or right. And that's how I graph a piecewise function. Because it's a line. Are you talking about, Ariana, these points? It's because it's a line. So what's my domain of this graph? All real numbers, or negative infinity to positive infinity. What about my range? Okay. She said anything less than 4. So can it go all the way down to negative infinity? And 4, does it include 4? So am I going to put a parentheses or a bracket? Point of discontinuity is where x equals the point at which the graph jumps. So it would be -1. So if I follow my graph, to go to the next point, I have to lift up my finger and move it. So that's the point of discontinuity. It's this line that we highlighted in the beginning. Y'all try the next one. What do you mean? So what's my range for this graph? Range is not all real numbers.
-5.
Is -5 included or not included? Not included. Because it's open circle. And remember, when we're writing range and domain, we want to write the smallest number first. So that's the reason why -5 is in front of positive infinity. What's my point of discontinuity? X equals -1. At what point is my graph increasing?
-5.
-1 to infinity. When we're listing increasing and decreasing, we state the x values. Are there any questions over 3? Can you listen at the same time? Can you listen at the same time? Okay. The difference between 2 and 3 with 4 and 5 is that instead of just giving one number as an interval, we're given 2. So for number 4, I'm going to highlight -1, which is right here, 3, and 5. So these are the sections I'm going to be working with this interval. So anytime that x is greater than -1, so that's going to be on this side of my line, but less than 3, which means it's going to be this interval right here. It's just going to be that number. So at -1, it's going to be -1. Is it open or closed? Trey? For this number right here, if I plug in -1 into x, I'm going to get -1. It's going to be closed. If I plug in 0, I'm going to get 0, and so forth. Now I'm going to get a point for 3, but is it going to be open or closed? Open. Open sesame. Now, on the interval from 3 to 5, I have x minus 1. So if I plug in 3, what do I get? 2. Is it going to be open or closed? Now, if I plug in 5, I get... Oh, I definitely went the wrong way. I'm going to get 4, but it's an open circle. So what's my domain for this one?
All real numbers less
It's not all real numbers less than 5.
than. Less than.
What's my smallest domain I can have? What's the biggest domain I can have? Is 5 included? So open circles. I have to put parentheses instead of bracket. What about my range? What's the smallest number my range hits? Included or not included?
Included.
What's the highest number?
4 not.
4 not included, so that means I put it parentheses. What's my point of discontinuity? You start where the graph starts, and then go. I'll try the next one. It's the same process, but instead of 2 equations, you have 3. is all real numbers. So it's going to be negative infinity to positive infinity. The range is a little bit different. The lowest number I hit is negative 2. But it only touches negative 2, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to do a bracket because it includes the point of negative 2. And I'm just going to put brackets around negative 2. Union, or included with 1. Yes. To positive infinity.
No, unincluded with that.
Oh, it is unincluded. Sorry. But it is 1. What's my point of discontinuity? X equals negative 1 and 2. So let's look at the next one. The ones we've been working with have just been linear equations. Well, this one includes what? What is this? A parabola, or a quadratic. So when I highlight my line at 2, and you do not have to draw this line if you don't want to, it's just a visual I like to use. From any point where x is less than 2, I'm going to have a parabola that I'm going to graph. So if I plug in 2 into this equation, what do I get? Open or close? What's your question? Negatives on the outside. What if I plug in 1? 0? Now when x is greater than or equal to 2, I use the equation x plus 3. So if I plug in 2 for x, I get 5. Is it going to be open or closed? If I plug in 3, what do I get? 4? 5? So that's my graph. Are there any questions over how to graph these? Is there anything that's confusing, that's tripping y'all up? I can't help you if you don't tell me. Okay. What's my domain? All real numbers. They just do. What's my range? What's the lowest point that my graph can go? Negative infinity. Wait, not 4. What's the highest my parabola hits? Included. Union. Included or not included?
Positive.
Okay, I'm going to go back up here. If it's an open circle, which means it's the less than greater than signs, then you also can say you use parentheses. So if it's greater than or equal to or closed circle, you use brackets. So I'm including that little note up at the top if you want to. Points of discontinuity. X equals 2. At what point am I increasing from?
Negative infinity a 0 and 2. In the top. We have to do this.
You don't have to, but I'm just saying that it's this with this. What about decreasing? Where am I decreasing from?
0 to 0.
This continues on and on and on and on past this line?
Oh no.
0 to 2.
0 to 2. Because on this side of the parabola, it stops. This parabola cannot go beyond this line. And then I'm going to raise this a little bit so y'all can see it. Are there any questions? So if we look at, so you can get the stuff that you missed. If we look at the next page, instead of actually giving a formula, or we're asked to, instead of giving the formula and graphing, they're giving us a problem and they're asking us to write the formula. So anytime you're writing a piecewise function, yes, we're writing the formula. Anytime you write a piecewise function, you always start off with f of x. And the bracket. I always start off with this. Every piecewise function has this written on it. Now let's look at what the problem says. You're making class t-shirts. The company charges $5 per shirt if you order less than 100 shirts. So I'm just going to look at that first part. $5 per t-shirt. That means I'm going to have 5x. For orders less than 100. So what's my restriction is that x has to be less than 100. What's my next one? Tell me what to write.
So you're gonna write less than 50. And you're gonna write less than, and then X. Another less than, and then 300.
Do y'all agree with this? Where? On both of them? On one of them?
No, it has to be greater than.
No, it's saying X is greater than 100.
Right here it's saying x is only greater than 100.
No, well, put it.
Okay, how do I do that? On both of them or just one of them?
Oh, yeah.
Get the phone up, please. So what's my next equation? Yeah?
X is 3x, 3 over x greater than 300. 3 times.
That's your answer.
That one's easy.
Try the next one. Okay. If your order is less than 100, so that means it has to be less than 100. So it can't equal to 100, it has to be less than. You don't put a line. Between 100 and 300. That means it can be 100 and it can be 300. So then you put the lines. Orders over 300 means that it can't be 300, it has to be over 300. So you just have to read the meaning of the words using. So y'all try number 8. Check your answers for number 8. You want to do number 9? Okay.
You do it?
Practice. Those used to be my favorite things to draw. Don't ask me why, though. Good. Make sure you always put this comma here, just so that we know that this isn't part of the equation. I don't know. Y'all agree or disagree? You forgot one part. There's 2 parts to this question.
Yeah. That's,
Determine how much you would make if you tutor for 4 hours. 4 greater than or less than 3. So which equation would you use? Okay, so plug in 4 for x. So what's 15 times 4? Are there any questions over 9? Y'all have -5, -5, -3, -3, -1. Okay, I have it on my paper, so just kind of ignore these numbers. And we're graphing the one that's on your paper. So my lines start off at -5, -3, -1, and 2, and 5. So those are my restrictions. So at -3, from my graph is going to be the line -3 from -5 to -3. But when I put my point at -5, 3, -3, am I going to have an open or closed circle?
oh no, close for the first one.
What's the next one?
No, you don't include that.
It's not included, but I still have to do an open circle. This is an open circle. Maybe this will help. Better? For my next restriction, I have the line -1. So on -3, -1, do I have open or closed circle?
Close.
Open or closed? Open or closed? Then? What about the next one? Then? What's my domain? -5 to 5. Is -5 included or not included? Is 5 included?
No.
When it asks for the constant, it wants to know where at on this graph is my graph a constant line. So I'm going to have more than just one. So my first one starts at -5. This is the x values, and it goes to what?
-3.
Good. What's my next one? 2. Then?
2.
Then, I have another one.
Well, you don't know what the
2, 5. So anytime it asks for a constant, it wants you to list the interval in which there's just a straight line. And I know the one, I don't know why these are so different. This is weird. Number 11 gives you a graph. Looks like this. And it wants us to write the piecewise function. Can we see that the piecewise function, I have 2 of them. I have this part, and then this part. Can y'all see that? So for my first equation, is x going to be, x is going to be less than -2. It does not matter which line that you include the or equal to with. It does not matter. Because this point, if the graph is at this exact same point on that line, it does not matter which equal to sign you connect that with. For this line, I have to write the formula. What is the slope of this line? What's my slope for this line? Positive or negative?
Negative.
If I continue with the trend, where would my graph end up crossing the x-axis?
It would
If you continued the trend,
-4, -4, like using
do y'all agree with that? What about the next one? What's my slope for the next line? And where does it cross the y-axis? So that's my answer for the last question on number 11. Are you done? Hey, is everything okay?